Cool. So I wanted to play this because I thought Kyle was really on a roll in this recent episode of Krystal, Kyle and Friends. They're talking about Tucker's recent firing from Fox News and that really lame, awkward video statement that he put out a couple days afterwards, where he didn't really address the situation. He didn't say why he was fired. He didn't call out Fox News. He just was, talking about how no one wants to debate real issues anymore, like war and civil liberties and other things that people constantly talk about, including on Fox News. So it was a really lame statement. It was really anticlimactic. And in this episode of KKF, Krystal and Kyle react to that and get a little bit into the reaction from people regarding Tucker Carlson's exit from Fox News, including what Kyle characterizes as a pretty annoying and inaccurate defense of Tucker Carlson from certain folks. I totally happen to agree with him, but let's take a look at this, and I'm excited to get your reaction too, Zach.
And so, what irritated me about that video and about some of the coverage of him is like trying to make him out into some sort of like free speech martyr. You tell me, if you called your boss a cunt and you were costing your company billions of dollars, what do you think is the reason that you're getting fired? And that's the part that's like sort of the way that he frames himself, like he's so righteous, etc., and always just speaking the truth. And thank God there are still places where the truth can still be heard. Okay, please, come on.
The one that really sends me, the worst take on this is the reason he was taken down is because he's an iconoclast standing up against the establishment, and he's on foreign policy, he's anti-war. This is the guy who had on some, former military guy, intelligence agency guy. Dude came on and said, we should be sitting on a throne of Chinese skulls, and Tucker was nodding along in agreement.
Right.
So don't tell me he's some sort of anti-war hero. Also, by the way, throughout Fox News, a number of different people have been going around saying we should do a literal war with Mexico, start bombing the cartels. Don't tell me he's anti-war. You could say certain wars he's a little more skeptical of, but he just wants to redirect it into other wars. And by the way, when you're a supporter more generally of the Republican Party, which he is, then by no stretch of the imagination can you say that this guy's anti-war. He takes populist energy and redirects it to the standard neoconservative, corrupt Republican politicians. So in no way, shape, or form do I think he's anti-establishment. If anything, it's more pernicious than that because he hijacks anti-establishment energy and redirects it into supporting the establishment. At least with other people, with Hannity, he comes as advertised. He never pretended to be a populist.
Right.
He never pretended like he was an outsider and he was taking on powerful interests. So the issues that he went through there, but I think this is the most important point. He lists off a bunch of things like, the media doesn't talk about these things, but they should, and we do, and we'll continue to do it. And the list is war, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, and natural resources. Let's go one by one. War. Again, you had the dude on saying we should sit on a throne of Chinese skulls. Yeah, you're covering war. You're covering it from the wrong perspective. Civil liberties. He's still pro the drug war. You want to talk about civil liberties and you're still anti-weed in 2023? Who are you kidding? You're not some sort of hero. Not even close. Emerging science. You mean like tanning your butthole?
Is that what he's referring? That is what he's referring to there. Huh?
I don't know if he's referring to like technology, AI stuff,
kind of like a COVID thing.
I don't know what he's referring to, but the fact he brings up science when he was just advocating spreading your asshole to the sun to cure all your ailments, like fuck off, dude. You're a joke. Then we get demographic. Yeah. Real serious demographic change. My neighbor is brown. Oh, what's happened to the country? Oh,
demographic
get over yourself.
Is such a red flag.
Of course,
that sort of
he had a white nationalist as a top producer, and that was outed, and he was fired. Now nobody talks about it, but I think that's kind of a big deal. For how many years was a avowed white nationalist posting on Nazi forums? The guy who was writing your goddamn scripts. Who are we kidding here? Then you got corporate power. You support Trump and Republican politicians. You actively cuck yourself to corporate power, and then you have natural resources. He brings that up like that's an important issue. It is an important issue, but he's a climate science denier. There's going to be wars over water. We're already seeing the evidence of it right now. The Colorado River is drying up, and you act like you're some sort of truth teller when it comes to natural resources. What a joke. He's a joke, this guy. He deserves to be. He should have been off the air a long, long time ago. Not because I'm canceling him or I'm anti-free speech, because he's bad at his job. He's not a journalist. He's not a reporter. He doesn't even have good, just like analytical takes from a policy perspective. He's a liar. We know he's a liar. It was proven in those leaked, emails and text messages.
Yes.
So what a clown.
I disagree that he is bad at his job, because his job was to be a propagandist for the Republican Party. And
Yeah,
I
you're
think
right.
he was very effective at that. I think he's more effective at that than almost anybody else
Correct.
at Fox News. But, it was starting to come with a business cost, and there was an ideological split between the direction he wants the Republican Party and the direction Rupert Murdoch and co. want the Republican Party in. And on top of it all, he called his boss a cunt. So there's that.
That'll do it.
But yeah, I thought that Krystal and Kyle were 100% on point in this discussion, pointing out that Tucker Carlson's not fucking anti-war. As Ben Norton reminded us the other day, anyone claiming Tucker is anti-war is a useful idiot. He's just a neocon 2.0. The only reason he criticizes NATO's war on Russia is because he wants war with China instead. Tucker lamented if Russia ever joined forces with China, American global hegemony would end. So yeah, this is not at all someone who's anti-war or anti-imperialist. I mean, look at this segment. Let's just quickly watch this. Defending China-Russia axis is bad for America. Let's take a look and see if this sounds like an anti-imperialist truth teller to you.
If Russia ever joined forces with China, American global hegemony, its power would end instantly. You'd have the world's largest landmass and largest natural gas reserves allied with the world's largest population and world's largest economy. So a Russia-China axis would be not just more powerful than the United States, but much more powerful. It would have the scale to control a lot of the world's economy and trade routes and raw materials. It could project military force that, posturing aside, we actually don't have the power to stop. If Russia and China ever got together, it would be a brand new world, and the United States would be greatly diminished. Most Americans agree that would be bad.
And most anti-imperialists agree that that would be good, right? If you're actually in favor of stopping the imperialist terror of the United States and of NATO, then you would agree that a more multipolar world where China, America, and Russia balance hegemony, that's actually preferable. It's a check on our imperialist ambitions. It's a check on our power as a, or our role as a dominant superpower. And it would actually prevent us from getting engaged in a lot of the sort of imperialist conquests and conflicts that we historically have found ourselves involved with. So most people that actually are anti-war, actually are anti-imperialist, have the exact opposite perspective that Tucker just espoused here about Russia and China. And the fact that this segment, among many, many, many others, show Tucker just being a bloodthirsty warmonger when it relates specifically to China is more than enough proof that he is no anti-war voice. He's no friend to the anti-imperialist movement. He's just a more sophisticated propagandist. And that's what Ben Norton is pointing out by saying that he's just a neocon 2.0. He's just a more sophisticated neocon. He understands the fact that today's Republican Party is not the same as George Bush's Republican Party. And he understands that unlike some of his co-hosts, such as Sean Hannity on Fox News, in order to appeal to younger conservatives, that you have to kind of dog whistle to some of these populist viewpoints, including some of the ones that he, every once in a while will repeat about Ukraine, Russia, and NATO. But the end conclusion is the same. He still wants war with China. He still wants the U.S. to be the sole superpower in the world. He wants us to, maintain our hegemony. He doesn't want to see that challenged. And to me, I don't know how you could call that anti-war.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. He's always kind of done this playbook, right? So he will broadly support the United States imperialist mission through every single guest that he has on his show. But he kind of runs the same routine where he'll find like some niche disagreement within himself and then the Republican Party. Let me just quickly read this quote from, so he initially, we've talked about it ad nauseum on the show, back when he was on Crossfire on CNN, he initially came out in support of the Iraq war. Right. He stayed pretty firmly in support of the war in Afghanistan, but specifically the war in Iraq was the one. Funny how he does that, right? He picks like a niche issue where he can pretend that he's, anti-war. So anyway, I found this like blog fucking old school article right here just to give some context to everybody. It was from The Observer. Okay. And it was called Newly Dovish Tucker Carlson Goes Public. And he goes in this piece and he's talking about how he basically went against his initial instincts and supported the Iraq war, but now he thinks it's a disaster. He says, I think it's a total nightmare and a disaster, and I'm ashamed that I went against my own instincts in supporting it. He said that's something I'll never do again, ever. I got convinced by a friend of mine who's much smarter than I am, and I shouldn't have done that. No, I want things to work out, but I'm enraged by it, actually. So he's playing the same game, right? This is the game he plays, where in every instance, right, he basically, like, around the perimeter supports the framework that would lead to people to draw those conclusions, but then to be different, to be a contrarian, he then draws a line in the sand and starts then criticizing the Iraq war for all of its failures and its lack of successes, right? While still supporting the machine, still supporting the party operation that will always produce, United States imperialist action globally. So that's his playbook. He's doing the same thing in Ukraine. Like he wants to stoke tensions. He would never, he wants us to escalate our position against China, right? He'll support Donald Trump for president, who ran on for sure escalating with China. I mean, remember the compilation bids in 2016 of every time Trump said China on the campaign trail to China, 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 China. Listen up, folks. We're going to get China, China, China to respect us again. They're going to respect us, folks. China, China, China. All of that. It's just the same deal. He's running the same blueprint over and over again, and he's expecting that you guys won't catch on.
Exactly. And of course, the irony of this is that while he's claiming on one hand to be against the Ukraine-Russia war, but on the other hand claiming to be against Russia and China working together, well, it's actually China working with Russia and Ukraine that might actually bring about the end to the Russia-Ukraine war. China playing a diplomatic role and helping to broker a peace agreement between Putin and Zelensky is really our only hope right now as far as a quick end to the conflict. So for him to claim on one hand, again, that he wants the war to end and that he's anti-war, but then to be against and China joining forces, Russia and China joining forces is potentially the only potential way this war will end. So that's incredibly ironic and just proves how stupid he is and how shallow his understanding of foreign policy actually is, when that's totally obvious to anyone who's actually interested in peace in the situation.